Much has been written over the years about famed environmentalist and entrepreneur Yvon Chouinard. From his humble emergence as a rock climber in the Yosemite Valley to the explosive launch of the renowned Patagonia clothing company, Chouinard has become a celebrated advocate for sustainable mountaineering as well as sustainable business practices. An avid surfer, kayaker, falconer, and fisherman, Yvon Chouinard and the Patagonia catalog were among the first to champion the clean climbing movement in North America. Chouinard's company has since campaigned for ethical working conditions in the apparel industry, for the preservation of the Alaska Wildlife Refuge, and most notably, spurred the creation of the organic cotton industry. The history of Patagonia, as well as Yvon Chouinard's activist and environmentalist roots, are chronicled in his 2005 autobiography, Let My People Go Surfing: The Education of a Reluctant Businessman. In October of 2008, the Scheinfeld Program for Entrepreneurship and Innovation welcomed Yvon Chouinard for an exclusive Q&A event at Santa Barbara City College.
Thank you, sir. I just remind all of you that Mr. Chouinard appears in front of many, many groups, and usually very large groups, and he requested this evening, coming to Santa Barbara City College, that it be a question and answer session where he had an opportunity in a more intimate setting to meet with students and hear their questions and answer their questions. I asked Yvon something outside before we entered, and I think it's worthwhile asking him again because I think it sheds some light on who he is and maybe what's even made his company so successful. And I said, what's the criteria you use to determine who you hire in your company? And so I will ask you the question again so that you can share your response with the group, because I thought it was really a very insightful response.
Well, I was telling Bonnie that for every job opening we have 900 applications on the average, because everybody wants to work for us. And so how do we pick? Well, first of all, we try to, if it's a very specialized job, we try to pick somebody who's can do the job. But if it's not real specialized, I'd rather hire an athlete who does the sports that we feature in our catalogs and stuff, and then teach them business. Because it's a lot easier than teaching a businessman to have passion for the environment or the outdoors or something. And then, you know, we try to get somebody that does the sport, and also, since the reason I'm in business is really to kind of save the planet. I mean, we consider our stockholder to be planet Earth. Every decision we make as a company, we ask, is this the right thing to do for the planet? And that's a different way of looking at business. So we look to see that somebody has volunteered for an environmental organization or something. And then the last thing is, do we want to go to dinner with this person? If not, they'd never get in. What we do is we hire very independent people who are self-motivated, and then leave them alone. And I don't care when they come to work. I don't care if they take off in the middle of the day and go surfing for 3 hours. All I care is that the work is done. And nobody abuses that.
That's
and in fact, we had a psychologist do a study of our company one time, and he came to me and said, hey, I got to tell you something. You have the most independent employees I've ever seen in any company. And in fact, they're so independent, they're unemployable anywhere else. And so the key is getting all those independent people moving in one direction. You know, you'd think it's like herding cats. But the key is you got to build consensus. Now that's the opposite of what government does. Government compromises, right? They cut the baby in half, always. And compromise never really solves the problem. It only halfway solves the problem. There's either a right way or a wrong way, not a halfway. So you got to build consensus, and you got to get everybody agreed, and then they all go in one direction.
Very interesting. Thank you for your question. We have another young man over here, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chouinard. Thank you for coming this evening. I just have a single question for you. You were talking earlier about one of the keys to success of your company is having a bunch of independent people come together with a consensus. You must have some secret. How do you do that? What's your how do you get a bunch of people that are seeming independent to be able to work together so well and create so much success?
Well, we look for that. And we have a choice from 900 people, so we look for those qualities in people. But what happens is we almost hire from within, almost always. What happens is somebody really wants to work for us, they go work in one of our retail stores as a clerk, just a salesperson, and then they get first dibs on the jobs.
Many of the young people and students here tonight have aspirations of maybe starting their own business, becoming entrepreneurial in the future. And I did highlight that section of the book where you talk about study the juvenile delinquent. Can you explain what you think are the critical qualities for these young people to have if they want to be successful as entrepreneurs in the future?
Well, let me tell you, it was a lot easier to start a business when I was young because the competition was a lot. I mean, I started out making tools for mountain climbers. I was a blacksmith. And the quality of the climbing tools, the ice axes and crampons and pitons, was very, very low. So it was very easy to be innovative and just take every single tool and look at it and say, I can make it better than this. And, but, I mean, if you're going to start your own business in this day and age, it's really tough because you're going against huge companies making a similar product, and the only way you can be successful is to break the rules and to do something different, because you don't want, I mean, for me, hell, I'll tell you what one of the 7th level of hell would be, is to be down there and they make me head of a marketing. They make me head of marketing for a cola company. And I have to sell my product against Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola. And it's exactly the same thing. It's 3 cents worth of sugar and water, and you got to fight it out, with mirrors and smoke. And I mean, that would be hell. I mean, the only part of business that I really enjoy is breaking the rules and then proving that it works. And that's, I think that's what you'd have to do to start your own business these days. You got to find a hole somewhere that somebody's not filling. I have a lot of young people ask me, hey, I got this idea, what should I do with it? And rarely is it worth starting a company around it. I think it's better to go to an existing company that makes a similar product that hopefully you trust, and you give them the idea and get a royalty off of it or something. But I mean, to start your own business in this day and age, I mean, it costs so much, and just in computers and just take the easy way.
Please, yes, sir. You're next.
Hi, Mr. Chouinard. My name's Tucker Olson, and I was wondering, as far as I understand, you started out making ice picks and better climbing gear than what was currently out there. Yeah. But what I'm wondering is, when did you, and what made you realize that your company and your business that you're going through was going to turn into a lot more than just you manufacturing a few better things?
I never did.
It just kind of rolled on.
Yeah, I kind of live in the moment, and which drives my wife crazy because she has a hard time getting me to plan anything. And so I just have grown this business day by day. I mean, I don't have any plan on how big this thing's going to be or anything like that. It's just my own personality. I mean, I look at my company as an experiment. like I said, I never wanted to be a businessman. So I just happened to be a craftsman that had good ideas for every product I looked at. I could figure out how to make it better. And so I kind of backdoored business, but I'm very pessimistic about the fate of the planet. And so I look at my company as an experiment. It tries to put into practice what all the great thinkers around the world are saying that we have to do to save the civilization and to save this planet and to save, 30% of the world species from going extinct in the next 50 years. And so I can do whatever I want with this company because I'm kind of like a samurai. They say if you wanted to be a samurai, you can't be afraid of dying. Well, I'm not afraid of losing this business. I could walk away from it, and I got another life. So I'm not a public corporation, so I can take all the risk and then prove that it's good business, and then influence other companies. Like, we can switch over to all our cotton to organically grown cotton when there was no one else doing it, and then prove that it's good. And now, the Gap and Walmart and Nike and God, hundreds of companies now are using organically grown cotton. And that's the reason I'm in business. And so I love breaking the rules of business.
So as a would-be or new entrepreneur, where does one start the process of being not only socially responsible, but being in tune with how to become more environmentally aware of these small kinds of incremental changes?
Well, that's an easy question. It's a matter of education. You just have to educate yourself. That's what I told the Walmart people. I said, you have no idea what goes on. You're selling Twinkies, and that ingredient list is 40 ingredients in a Twinkies. You're going to have to know what every one of those ingredients means. You're going to have to educate yourself. And I'm convinced that most of the damage caused to our planet by businesses and consumers and stuff is just caused by leading a non-examined life. I mean, if you want to feed your family healthy foods, you can't just go to Safeway and buy vegetables. I mean, some of those vegetables could come from Mexico where they still use DDT, and in fact, non-organically grown vegetables now have been proven that they have 70% less nutrients. 70%, trace minerals and vitamins and all of that. People are eating more, but they're starving themselves to death. So, you gotta know the farmer. You gotta go to farmers markets. It's not easy. You gotta know where your meat comes from. And it's the same thing with being in business. We didn't know how to make clothes when we first asked the question, what should we be making clothing out of it? We didn't know. We thought, 100% pure cotton would be the nicest thing because it's all farmed and it's not made out of petroleum. But we found out that of all the fibers to make clothing, the worst by far was 100% pure cotton. And we started looking into that. We started taking tours in the Central Valley here and looking at cotton farms, and my God, it was a wasteland out there. There's nothing alive. There's no bugs, no beetles, there's no weeds, just cotton fields. And then they pour so much chemicals. Cotton accounts for 25% of the world's pesticide use, even though it occupies 3% of the world's farmland. And then there's these big lakes out there in the Central Valley because, there's no rivers that go to the ocean from the Central Valley. The Kern River just goes underground. And so they're pouring tons and tons of water on these fields, They're salinating the fields. There's millions of acres in the Central Valley that are all salinated, never be able to grow anything again. And then they have these big sumps where the water comes up, and they hire guys with shotguns to scare the birds away, the waterfowl, because if they ingest that water, they'll have chicks with 3 beaks and 4 legs. And I mean, I came back from those tours and I said, okay, it's like the guy coming back from Cambodia, the landmines. I said, I don't want to be in business if I have to make clothing out of industrially grown cotton. So then that's when we switched over to organically grown. But that was just asking one question. You got to keep asking enough questions till you get finally some results. And then you got to ask, well, what are we going to dye this stuff with? Are dyes toxic? There are no books written when we looked into this. Well, there's different dyes for cotton, there's different dyes for polyester, different dyes for nylon. So we asked around, we found out, yeah, most dyes are really toxic. But there's some dyes you can buy from Germany that are non-toxic, but some colors are still toxic. So, when you educate yourself, you're left with choices, right? Mm-hmm. The uneducated person doesn't have very many choices in his life. And so, okay, so now we can choose to buy these West German dyes and not do certain colors. Well, but where is it going to be dyed? Well, even though we're using non-toxic dyes, it still could be polluting streams. Mm-hmm. And in fact, we found out that our flannel shirts are all dyed on one river in Portugal, and there's all these dye houses, and they're just pulling in water. They dye their stuff, and there's big outfalls going into the river. By the time the river gets near the ocean, the river is jet black. This big river is jet black. And so the last dye house had to buy all this expensive cleaning machinery, and they pull in the water, they clean it, then they dye, then they run it through the machinery again, and so their outfall is pure water. Great, now we know. We're going to dye in this factory. Before, I just call a fabric supplier and say, hey, give me 10,000 yards of shirting fabric in blue and red. And I was leading a non-examined life in business. And, it gets to be a pain in the ass, let me tell you. But you can sleep at night, which is really pretty good feeling. And you can feel like you're part of the solution rather than the problem. I think, the idea of endless resources, that there's no end to resources, that's what you study in economics, is a false one. And the idea that we can shop ourselves out of this hole that we're in right now is also a false idea. We're all going to have to consume less. And that's what we tell our customers, in fact. We say, instead of owning a pair of shorts to play volleyball in, and a pair of shorts to surf in, and a pair of shorts to run in, and a pair of shorts to play tennis in, and a pair of, just buy one pair of shorts. And I can tell you that Kelly Slater is not going to surf any better in his $60 surf trunks than he is in a pair of cut-off jeans. In fact, the more you know, the less you need. And that's kind of the way I think we have to go. I mean, we're all the problems of the world right here with our consuming. We're consuming the resources of 7 planets. That's not very close to sustainability, is it?
Yvon, in 1991, on July 31st, you had what you coined Black Wednesday, where you had to lay people off in your company. And it sounds like it was a very painful decision for you to make, and I can understand that. I think you've kind of addressed the issue already, but is there any advice you would give these young people as far as how better to prepare and weather difficult economic times, both personally and professionally, if they are in business?
Well, what really got us through those difficult times is I took a dozen of the key people in the company, and out of those dozen, not one had an MBA, not one had ever been in business school. They were all anthropologists, and they studied biology, and I mean, I got a degree in auto mechanics from John Burroughs High School. And we all went out kind of in the desert, you know. We went to Patagonia, the real Patagonia. We walked around and we sat down and we said, well, okay, why are we in business? You know, what are our values? What are we trying to do? I mean, we got a good chance of losing this whole thing. And so we sat down and started writing the philosophy of the business. You know, starting, okay, what are our values? Well, number one, we were all climbers and kayakers and skiers, and so the equipment was really important to us. So we said, okay, one value is we want to make the best product. Not among the best, but we want to make the very, very best. That's really important for us because it feels good when you're making the best stuff. And secondly, we want to have flex time so that we can go on expeditions for 3-4 months at a time and not have everything fall apart. So we got to have flex time. Another value is we don't want to leave our kids at home or quit working when we get pregnant. So that's really important that we blur the distinction between work and play and family. We want to just blend all that together. We want to work at our play, want to play at our work, and we want to have our family together with us. And then there was some other values and stuff, but and then the other thing is, you know, we started realizing that we didn't want to be greaseball businessmen. We didn't want to, you know, we're coming kind of from the 60s and stuff, and we didn't want to be part of the problem. We wanted to be part of the solution. So we added a second part to our mission statement, which was cause no unnecessary harm. It didn't say cause no harm because there's no such thing as sustainability. There's no such thing as making a product that doesn't cause harm. So we said, okay, cause no unnecessary harm. So we're going to minimize the damage that we do by using non-renewable resources and making climbing gear and clothing and stuff like that. And then later, we added a third part. As the environment started collapsing more and more, and we started seeing, boy, this isn't enough. We have to do more. We added a third part to our mission statement, which is to use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. Well, when we came out with that third part, a lot of my own employees were saying, what environmental crisis is he talking about? Well, we all know now, right? Things aren't getting any better. So that last part is going to happen if we can achieve the first two parts. Make the best product. You know, every time I've had a problem to solve in business, the answer has always been to add quality. Let's say your profit is down for the year. It's because your quality slipped. And every single time, the answer is to increase the quality. And that's hard to get across to accountants. You know, you put in a child care center and they're saying, you know what, this is just going to cost you a lot of money to do this. You're not going to get it back. That's not true at all. We've got 70-something% women who we can't afford to lose when they get pregnant. And the best product we produce is the kids that come out of our child care center.
We talk about ethics in our business classes and the importance of social responsibility, and
That's unusual because I had the president of Yale University come to see me to try to convince me to do a fellowship at Yale, because the business school was teaching all these classes in business with not one class in environmental responsibility. And the School of Forestry and Environmental Studies was doing all these classes, not one business class. This complete disconnect, and they could see that what my company is trying to do is combine those two. That's unusual.
Exactly.
If you're doing it here.
Well, we do it in a small part, but we think it's an important part of a student's education that in business, in entrepreneurship, that we at least talk about and discuss the importance of ethics and social responsibility. And I'm also delighted to hear you talk about and encourage these young people to live and examine life and be curious. It's one of the things I encourage my students on a regular basis. I frequently tell them, and they're tired of hearing it, I know, that information and knowledge is power. It's somewhat cliche, but for you to say to go and find out and learn and investigate and be curious is a powerful message for our students to hear tonight, and I appreciate you sharing that with them. But I also think that to take on the kinds of challenges you have requires a certain type of leadership. And so I want to share with you as kind of a parting shot this evening, something that I think reflects very much about you. And this is, from all places, the United States Military Academy in their leadership training. And it reads as follows. It says, if leaders are not looking for the truth, if the situations are not framed as having moral implications in the first place, then these leaders make decisions based on other criteria, as often with disturbing results. Moral sensitivity alone is not enough. Once leaders recognize that a moral problem exists, then they have to decide what is right. I think you've demonstrated that for us tonight. This requires moral judgment, discerning which action is most justifiable based on a set of ethical criteria. Without the courage to take action, to do the right thing, all moral awareness and judgment is for naught. True leaders like you, Mr. Chouinard, true leaders of character, demonstrate moral courage to choose the harder right over the easier wrong, over and over again. And for that, we thank you. And for coming out and being with us this evening, we thank you immensely. Let's all thank Mr. Chouinard.
Thank you.
For more information about the Scheinfeld Program for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, visit sbcc.edu/SPEI. SBCC TV is a production of Santa Barbara City College.